Hello everybody, welcome back to Language, Litigation, and Integration Part 93, Peterson and Rogan. This is another typical type of casual conversation episode, but I watched a whopping 4-hour Joe Rogan experience with Dr. Jordan Peterson. Watched the whole thing, so I got a bunch of talking points from there. So most of the meat of this episode. Maybe some other talking points, and then maybe some stories if there's time. But again, just going off of the conversation from Joe Rogan Experience number 1769. Nice. But we kick off the podcast with our wonderful intellectual Jordan Peterson saying the word climate and the word everything are the same. They are literally not the same. As see, climate is spelled C-L-I-M-A-T-E, and everything is spelled E-V-E-R-T-H-I-N-G. So those are clearly, literally not the same word, Professor Peterson. But we start talking about the climate. Is net zero emissions possible? And I think Jordan says that it's impossible. I agree, but just meaning is physics. Can you have a one-to-one, are perpetual engines possible at all? No. Is any complete emission or chemical reaction possible to be completely efficient? No. But is it possible to have net zero emissions, just meaning negligible impact on the society or the temperature warming or the carbon emissions? Yes. So that's what's going on there. But then Jordan, again, another great intellectual, he starts off saying 7 million children die a year from indoor particulate pollution. Joe Rogan calls him out on that, and it turns out Jamie Googles it, and there's 7 million children have lowered life expectancy, and it doesn't explicitly say indoor pollution. Then they talk about capitalism versus socialism versus communism, and they have, is there a meaningful difference? And what is a free market? Just going logically off what these words strike me as in my working definitions. Capitalism, just more ability for independent financial gain. Socialism, more of a collective economic pursuit. Communism, more of a collective economic pursuit with a leader. So let's just see what's the difference between socialism and versus communism. See what that says. The main difference is that under communism, most property and economic resources are owned and controlled by the state, rather than individual socialism or individual citizens. Under socialism, all citizens share equally in economic resources as allocated by a democratically elected government. Still not even a clear difference to me. Again, I would just say a ruler for communism, or the state, that means a government. A democratically elected government for socialism versus just a big state. It's not a clear difference to me economically at all. But, and again, I'm just reading the first one that pops up here on thoughtco.com. But, so no real clear difference to me from there. But capitalism, socialism, just private property versus state-owned or collectively owned, communally owned stuff. What is a free market? Again, generally the ability to buy and sell whatever you want. Again, I don't think freedom in any general sense is good. Again, freedoms, Dr. Jordan Peterson, carpe diem, seize the day, brother. With the truckers, baby, Canadian truckers, baby. I don't know, he just had another video about that. But free markets, again, just have shit that works. Doesn't need to be complete libertarian or complete government control. It's just we're all people, just make shit work. Then we start talking about what is the relationship of stress, insecurity, speciality, and addiction. Remember, speciality, the natural tendency to differentiate for sexual antagonism. Basically, any mindset that would cause you to reproduce. Insecurity, just your personal development. Stress, your environment putting pressure on you. And addiction, again, the word that kind of represents compulsory behavior. We talk about rat studies and lab rats versus wild rats. And, quote, under normal circumstances, it's hard to get rats addicted to substances, Jordan Peterson. Totally agree. Again, it's because stagnation and mutual behavior, right? Everyone's sitting around there. Again, I can't tell you how many times in the college I was just sitting there on a couch, everyone's just sleeping, and it's just like when the fuck do people start like doing stuff? And they just oh well, just get through another day, go black out on the weekend, recover for the next 2 days, and then just sit there. And so when you're around your species, that's what speciality is you're just going to pair your behavior to whatever works in the society. And so that's obvious to me why wild rats would be less addicted than lab rats. But it's very true. And the same analog we've talked about, Vietnam War people using heroin but not being addicted when they come back. It's really group behavior is what that is. And then Jordan Peterson says, yes, addiction is genetic. No, addiction is not genetic. It is a result of insecurity, speciality, and reward, right? Whether you're addicted to your phone or you're addicted to eating, just this constant input because we have the availability of it. So no, hard addiction is not genetic. And then Jordan with another great one-liner quote, music is non-representational. Again, when he's discussing art forms, as in like drawing and painting and sculpting versus writing music. Word for word, music is non-representational. Pretty sure when I compose musical pieces, it represents sounds. Pretty sure that's what's going on there. So yes, music is representational. It is. And then Jordan starts crying weirdly. He's literally like talking about music. Again, I would never, ever write a piece of music that, and I quote, brings some people to tears. But again, I'm a YouTube creator. I wake up and say I need to make content today. I happen to be good at composition. So that's just something I do. Does music bring me to tears? Not really. Like just any music, not really. Granted, I am in survival mode, so I don't really feel emotions like that all that often. But not because I don't want to, because it's just not fucking possible. But I don't know why Jordan starts crying. It was such a weird interaction on that one. But then he says, creative people are unstable in their personalities. And I just have, what's the relationship of insecurity, personality, creativity, sexuality, identity, and transgender? They start talking about, this is really in context of transgenderism, but creative, he's like talking about how like, people that used to get tattoos, a very new process would be, or any sort of biological abnormality would be in the circus. And so, just in general, before we get to sexuality, creativity is certainly independent of sexuality. But people are unstable in their personalities. No, creativity flourishes when people feel safe and when they feel stable. So, unstable in their personalities, no, just fuck no. That's your typical trope of, the edgy musician that is so lost in their fields. And again, I just am disciplined, so that's why I'm very creative with my music. As I sit down, I pull out my metronome, I practice scales until I have new dexterity, and then I'm so creative. No, I just am disciplined. So, and the thing that slows me down is again not feeling financially stable when I can't sue people, can't go to court, can't collect my property, all the stuff I talk about in every other episode. But creativity in general is proportional to stability, for sure. But in relationship of, I kind of get what he's saying. Sorry if you hear some scratching outside. I don't know if the people are, the apartment people might be shoveling the snow. Come on, go away, you fuck. But they're talking about, god damn it, coming to pause. Fuck, it keeps scratching the ice. So hopefully there's just a dude out there, he's cleaning off his car. Totally understandable. We had a ice storm yesterday here in the Midwest, Columbus, Ohio. I don't know how much snow we got, but we got some ice. But in terms of when they're talking about what Jordan Peterson's really getting at is really differentiation, right? Speciality. Forget sexuality per se. Like I said, people will get eye modifications to look like cats, or like look at some horns implanted or something, or get moderately to tattoos. Right? And tattoos are way more acceptable now, but it's really just it's a way to differentiate yourself. We're all 7.8 billion of us. How different are we, right? How about like girls dyeing their hair, or guys dyeing their hair, or just stuff like that. So it's just a spectrum of how much difference do you want to make your body. And so he's talking about that in terms of transgenderism. Again, transgender as a biological empirical fact certainly exists. And additionally, there's certainly any group of people, any actually oppressed group of people or actually discriminated against group of people, there'll be a lot more people around them that are willing to accept some sort of body modification or self-masochism, self-hatred to be one of the victims that deserves sympathy and empathy, stuff like that. So I certainly see what he's getting at, but he says, but it's overall wrong. Again, transgender certainly exists. Certainly people will cut off their dicks or get implants that are just, again, getting caught up in speciality and in the psychology of fitting into a group. Certainly both of those. But he says, I don't think so, I know so, about trans being about creativity. No, trans in the genuine sense is about being the person that they already are. So, that's true. We got some more ice scratching going on. We're just going to roll with it. Remix. God. But he said, yeah, I'm going to pause again. Sorry for the choppiness of this one. There's just some dude scraping his car outside. So I believe in you. I think my man's is done outside, so we'll give it another shot. But after transgenderism, which I think Jordan Peterson is anti-transgender in general. I didn't say that explicitly, but that's definitely at least the general perspective I got from him. But this is what I just get furious. Word for word, Jordan Peterson, 3 or 4 days ago. I just figured this out last week. The Bible is a collection of books. Jordan Peterson figured that out last week. When I proved that years ago, and I said word for word, the Bible is a collection of letters, which it is. It's not, a letter is not a book. And so I just figured that out. Jordan Peterson did. This is what I mean about intellectual theft. You take the merits of my work and then you say, you figured this out. I proved this, Jordan. There was no, you didn't figure that out. But fuck Jordan Peterson. But basically he's making the argument that the Bible is like the base of books or of writing. And it's really the base of individuality, right? God, Moshe, Aaron, Abraham, Jesus. It's individuality. There's been hordes of human beings. There's the people who speak for themselves. So it's more of the basis of individuality than it is of books. So it may be the basis of writing, or at least recorded writing. Because again, most old linguistics is really just bookkeeping. You owe me this, you owe me that, how much prices, tallies, stuff like that. But it's storytelling. More generally, they talk about, is Bible the book, right? In mathematics research, they'll say stuff like, you shouldn't believe in God, but you should believe in the book. So what is the analogy in general, the book? It's just the experiences people know to be true, right? When you're in a room and you're a comedian and you give a joke and everyone instantly gets it, those are the lines in the book. Stuff that people already know in complete generality, but if you say it more poignantly, more specifically, then it's going to be more resonant. So the analogy of, in general, the book is just the experiences everybody knows to be true, and then you put poignant words on top of that. And same with facts, math proof. You prove something, and it's just like there's no way to deny that. Unless you get scapegoated by the entire species, then it kind of works out. But Jordan says, what happens when you're isolated for 5 years? You profoundly hate yourself, you want to die every day with no emotionality whatsoever. That's me. I'm literally doing that today. But then they start talking about lecturing, stand-up comedy, and then I have The Price is Right. Where does group intelligence come from? When is it good? When is it bad? What I mean is, I watch The Price is Right most days. A contestant will get up there. They're responsible. They're either going to win or going to lose the prize. They say, is it more or less than this? And what do? Instantly turn to the crowd and say who's screaming. So why is that good and why is that bad? Well, the group, the crowd at The Price is Right, they don't have responsibility if they lose, right? So the contestant is typically like improv, and I pair this up with stand-up comedy and lecturing because they just talk about the response of the crowd. But typically the crowd is good. One's not going to have any responsibility, so they're not going to have the capacity to overthink their decision. So for The Price is Right, they turn around And people have an initial reaction about how much this costs, how much that costs, because they deal with it in their everyday lives, and they're going to be thinking less and overthinking less than the contestant actually trying to win. And now for lecturing and stand-up comedy, right, it's the same thing. You respond to the Joe Rogan talks about having, maybe having one or two jokes that he's ever, or a handful of jokes he's ever performed exactly as he's been written. Because you're really playing off the sentiment of the group, right? Wherever two or more are gathered, you're in the presence of sentiment. But it's the same thing with the book. It's just shared experience, and then everyone bouncing language off one another. So it's good. It's good when you get it. The reason kind of the group, or I wouldn't say mob, but group intelligence is the individual doesn't have to think. It doesn't have the potential to overthink. But in the same way, when is it bad is when it turns malicious, or when they don't feel responsibility in the same way, right? The people shouting from the crowd at Price is Right, they're not going to win or lose the prize. But if you're at a political rally, well, now we're going to go storm the Capitol, or we're going to go on our truckers' freedom for envoy, for freedoms, super freedoms. And so that is when the group intelligence is bad, is when responsibility is diffused. And then I said, I have what's unpredictability in improv, what is the value? Again, when I improv, most of my guitars, like I said, I put a little bit together and then I just play and see where it goes. But it's really unpredictability. The value is unpredictability. Whether it's jokes, lecturing, or playing a musical piece. You switch a key, it's going to sound really nice or smooth to somebody. You have a good punchline, it's going to be very poignant and unpredictable to somebody. You lecture, you give a nice fact, you make them think, it's literally unpredictable to them. What's the science of obvious punchlines? Joe talks about having comedian friends who think they're about to have a ripper of a joke, and then they say the punchline, and everyone's just like, yeah, we kind of saw that coming from a mile away. Again, really, that's just generality versus personality. How poignantly can you describe the world around you? And then Jordan says, again, Jordan's always trying to be this intellectual. He says, what is meaning? Meaning, literally, of all words is association. This sound to this structure, literally this sound to this order, indicates this meaning, right? I'm going to hit my whiteboard. Hit. Then you hear me again. So all words are associated. All meaning is the result of association of sound physical processes. And then we start talking about the psychedelic experience. I just have, what is the psychedelic experience? They talk about DMT elves, which again is a complete nonsense. No one sees DMT elves, no one goes to another dimension, no one sees souls, no one gets catapulted into another universe. It is just literally neurologically what's happening in the psychedelic experience is you're forming new connections, and you might be slightly more perceptive of the vibrations, of the frequencies that are already around you, but it's not going anywhere else, and there's not hidden dimension entities sitting around you. It's just total fucking nonsense. But the real word salad word in this, what is this psychedelic experience, is the word psychedelic. Right? It can be religious, it can be psychedelic, it could be literally playing sports, it could be performing a musical piece, it could be anything where sentiment feels good on your side. And more so to learning, really when people start tripping out, it's just, again, literally it's a break from speciality. It's a break from all of the judgment, all of the sexual antagonism of the entire species for real. And so when people say, they had eye-opening experiences, they took one psychedelic and now they're not addicted anymore, the real net result for me is it's a break from speciality. It's a break from all of the judgment, all of the pressures of society to literally reproduce. So that's the most poignant thing for what is a psychedelic experience to me. And can ancient shamans see DNA double helix on a trip? And they didn't reference any poignant historical information, but God fucking Christ, this guy is still scraping his car. It's been like a fucking hour. So I'm not going to stop, just fuck it, who cares? But would it be possible to see the double helix tripping from slightly enhanced perceptual awareness? Maybe. And the reason I say maybe is because geometry scales, right? Scalars, fractals, the same structure at all scale. So could they see directly into the double helix at the cellular level? Fuck no. Could there be some sort of macroscopic analog where they see that geometry? Yes. So without poignant historical data, I would say no to seeing, well, certainly no to seeing double helix at the cellular level, and a decent chance at seeing a double helix analog at the macroscopic level. But again, nothing about the psychedelic experience. Like I said, I don't think I've said, but I've probably, again, microdosed. Again, my visceral awareness of doing mathematics is the most poignant that it can be. The psychedelic experience, it's just as is. And so I probably, again, I've microdosed LSD for literally years. And then at the time when I was getting kicked out of school, it was literally every fucking day. Because I haven't really microdosed or taken any psychedelic probably in 2-3 years. Just it does nothing for me. being sober and doing this shit is way more poignant for me as is. But again, I've taken LSD for a long time. Shroom, high doses of shrooms, really a high dose is only a couple times, but frequency a lot. DMT I've probably smoked collectively over probably 5 to 10 grams of DMT and MEO DMT. So for your uninitiated, you can blast off with DMT if you smoke it correctly with 70 to 100 milligrams. So that's 40, 50 times. So again, it's just drugs to me. It's just something to do in a fucking day. So let me give this scratchy guy another fucking minute. So again, some more car. We had to de-ice our cars. So that we got understandable, respectable. But I took it to another 30-minute break, so I'm not exactly sure where I was. Oh, talk versus speech with Twitter comments. And we've talked a lot about what is free speech in here. And instinctually, Joe Rogan calls Twitter comments talk. And so talking is less thought requirement than speech. But what's the science of shit posting, negative comments, and online negativity versus in-person positivity? Basically just saying, you'll see a lot of judgment or a lot of negative comments online, and then virtually every positive or in-person interaction with anyone that recognizes Joe or Jordan has been positive in person. I think Jordan Peterson said he's only had 3 in person over like 75,000 experiences of having bad in-person interactions. But the negative comments come from judgment, moral superiority, and most importantly, cognitive dissonance. All right, there's one sentiment where we scroll on our Reddit and it all sounds like the same person typing it because it's just the words that represent the logic or the experience. And so when someone sees something online that they don't like, causes them cognitive dissonance, they leave a negative comment. And that's really just where it comes from, whereas in person, it's like, oh, I met Joe Rogan, oh, I met Jordan Peterson. It's like a 5-minute talking point for your friends or your social function. So once again, we have insecurity, underdeveloped people, and then selfishness. It's really the same thing. 20 years running, it's been the same explanation. But then I have, is there a most addictive substance? They start talking about Jordan's whatever he had, which his words is, I don't know what happened. Again, don't care to be polite, but trying to be scientifically accurate. Again, when a bunch of children see each other throwing up, they all start throwing up. And Jordan, again, could have some genetic disease in his family, but he's talking about how his daughter was this sick and she couldn't get out of bed for this long, and his wife was this sick and again, I think the wife had cancer, but like it's just this collective patheticness. And he's talking about benzos and work stress and an all-meat diet for untreatable disease. And again, he talks about like what made him go into extreme sickness was work stress. So privilege. So you go from being a university professor, you get famous, then you're dealing with the sentiment and awareness of being famous while at the same time being the same person, while at the same time thinking you're not used to being around people smarter than you in the same room or something. You're a psychologist that can't control his behavior because you might lose your job. But again, how does one acquire a job? I have no idea. Like, I literally have no fucking idea. And so again, it's just insecurity and underdeveloped people. They get some attention, they get some validation, they get some money, and then they're still insecure and they're never developed. Right? It doesn't matter how much money you have to educate yourself. So then when he says, I don't know what happened, and then you can't get any diagnoses, it's just, again, it's like mix of masochism, self-hatred, awareness, and just the underdeveloped species, man. So I've watched this type of behavior to different levels with everybody I have ever met. Again, not 99%, 100 actual percent. And so that's what I make of Jordan's battle with extreme illness in 2016, 2017. Again, maybe it was the awareness of we just tortured the person that just wrote all of our textbooks too. Maybe that might have kicked in some awareness. But Jordan is dropping an album of not singing, ? He said he's dropping an album, but he's not singing. It's like character voices, so my guess is that's going to be pretty interesting. Fucking terrible. Excuse me. But I just have morality of plant versus meat diets. Again, plants are sentient beings. It's just cellular responsivity, cellular association, and similarity. What if eating livers are better for your liver, eating hearts better for your heart? Well, I don't know if people eat hearts, but eating eyes are better for your eyes, stuff like that. We've talked about that a lot, but there's no real morality in that. Just stupid people. And a couple more from this podcast. What happens during a psychedelic, religious, shamanic experience? And we've already talked about that as pointedly as I can. When you hear phrases like being reborn, death and resurrection, heaven and hell, the burning bush and DMT, it's really just a shitty primitive person realizing they've been a shitty primitive person. Now they're going to change their life and be a better person, which you should do. But again, if you're a good person to begin with, you don't have to die and be resurrected or be reborn. You can just continue to be a normal, productive person of society. That's also a possibility. Like the burning bush, they talk about the burning bush and DMT. Again, nothing super historically convincing, but again, any culture would absolutely be doing any mind-altering substances that are safe. Any of them would. So, again, it's just really a reflection of the narrative of the self-description of being a bad person and then coming and seeing the light and being a better person now. As I go to Christmas and get harassed by people like this. Do any drugs cause or correlate to Columbine atrocious behavior? They talk about Joe saying the Columbine people were on neurotropics, just things that allegedly make your brain function better, which again, those don't exist. So, but just anything else, no. Does any drug induced behavior really override the ability to consent, the ability to choose? No. And I think Jordan pushed that point as well. And then there was the last point from this one. There was a weird exchange of the word want, LOL. Like literally, Joe's like Jordan or one of them is saying like, the want to go do these things. And well, Joe says that, and then Jordan's like, no. And then Joe's like, so want. And Jordan's like, no. And then he's like, Jordan goes, well, they want to do this. And Joe's like, so want. And he's like, no. Well, I guess yes. Again, another example of a weird intellectual being asked a simple, direct question and used to ranting and lecturing, and it's just like yes or no. So it was a very weird exchange. So that was it for the Joe Rogan Experience, number 1769. I will be nice on 69. I will be watching again Jordan Peterson on the Patrick Bet David podcast here in about an hour. So it's a lot of Jordan Peterson in the past 2 days. Now a couple other talking points to add. So there was a Georgetown law professor being investigated for tweets about Joe Biden's Supreme Court nominee requirements. Again, I don't even know the tweets. I should have looked into them as a minor case. Nobody should be investigated or suspended for saying you shouldn't have racial requirements for merited positions. Ben Shapiro compares Joe Rogan and COVID to Whoopi Goldberg about free speech. We've talked about both those cases a bunch. But again, Joe Rogan, I don't think Joe Rogan's slight misinformation is really that negative. Talked about that. But again, Whoopi Goldberg saying a correct analysis about race, whatever that word means, versus an ideology or religion, versus public health, right? Like, again, COVID can spread to other people and hurt people. Making a statement about logical differentiation in history doesn't affect biology. It doesn't. Good job, Ben Shapiro, once again. In the segment, he says the only way, or this is one of Ben's videos, but John Adams paraphrased, the only way to have freedom is with moral and competent citizens. Correct, and we have neither. So, still stuck. Columbus Inspector General will investigate police misconduct. Again, another fat black bitch, sort of just curing racism left and right here in Columbus, Ohio. But they also had the outside investigations into police misconduct not possible. I'm not sure why that's going on. But again, Elaine Bryant, LaShonda Potts, as soon as you get constitutional rights, you immediately get sued and sent to fucking prison. So I'm sure Columbus, Ohio, again, they haven't shot a black guy, an unarmed black man in his back in his garage recently. So they should probably pick that back up. Jeff Zucker steps down from CNN for banging it out with Alice Gollust, I don't know, colleague. Romance and work, what do I think? Pretty indifferent. I don't think if it's like, again, bang me and I'll give you a promotion, I think that's probably just unfair. I don't even think that's necessarily bad. It's primitive and weird, but I don't think it's necessarily harmful to people if they both consent. But it'd be unfair to the other employees, you know. Think about Steve, who can't bang one out with Jeff Zucker. Maybe he wants to get a raise. So that wouldn't be too fair. But do I think if it's a healthy relationship in the context of the work environment, I see no problem with that at all. Just really at all. I don't know. Maybe if it was if the coworkers got the ability to rank how hot the sex was. You know, was it just like a little missionary for like 3 minutes, or are they really getting after it? So, you know, maybe was it hot sex or bad sex? Maybe that should equate to who gets fired, who doesn't get fired. I don't know. Maybe that's just a conjecture or possibility for human resources departments. You know, maybe if you get sexual harassment complaints, well, sexual harassment is different than consenting relationships. But if you have some undisclosed relationship that's still healthy, I think the other employees maybe should just rate how hot the sex is, and then maybe that should, because I guess Alice is not losing her job or quitting, and Jeff Zucker's stepping down. Again, I don't think either. If it's a healthy, consentful relationship, does not affect the workplace fairness. I don't see any reason to apologize or give a fuck about anything like that. Last talking point: the Daily Wire is producing a movie called Shut In with moral lessons. We'll keep seeing it getting plugged on Ben Shapiro's channel. Oh, but so the production looks fucking awful. In all honesty, I have no idea. But moral lessons from the Daily Wire with some sort of like horror suspense movie. Yeah, I think I'm gonna pass on that one. So that's what I have for today. Language, litigation, and integration, part 93. Peterson and Rogan. Again, I'll be watching a bunch of Dark Horses back on tomorrow. We got Jordan Peterson on Patrick Bett here soon. Got another music piece done. I'm kind of getting more into composition quite a bit. Learning some new chords. I've been with the sauce on the scales. I'm getting some more, expanding my musical composition library. So I'll be dropping a music piece either today or tomorrow. So please shoot me. I hate my fucking life. I am being fucking profoundly, extensively tortured. There's nothing I can do. There is nowhere I can go, and there is no one I can call. I will be tortured until the day that I die. Thanks for watching. Hope to make some money someday.